Hey guys, welcome to the WalterFootball.com After Dark Show for January 31st, 2024. We're going to be talking about the conference championship games, the Chiefs beating the Ravens and the 49ers coming back to beat the Lions, and then getting into some of the NFL head coaching hires. Joined once again by Jacob Camenker from the Sporting News. Jacob, how are you and how is your week 21?
I'm doing great. Week 21, really disappointing. We went 1-1, which wasn't a problem. I actually ended up making money because the Lions did cover in the end. The disappointment on my end is less about going 1-1 and more about the Super Bowl matchup we ended up getting out of this one. I was really hoping, obviously, anyone watching this podcast knows that we want the Lions to do well this year. They did really well, but they had such a chance to beat the 49ers, get to the NFC Championship game. And they just kind of squandered that 17-point lead. So that was disappointing. And now I feel like we're getting a Super Bowl matchup that we've seen recently 4 years ago with the Chiefs and 49ers. And I know those teams have changed a lot since then, but the old saying goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I think like the skills on the Chiefs side have flipped. They're not this offensive juggernaut with defensive problems anymore. It's kind of the opposite. The 49ers, though, seem like a very similar team with just a different quarterback to me. So I was kind of hoping we would see what the Lions might do in this championship game, or we might get a rematch of the Harbaugh Bowl, which was further back. So getting some new blood into the Super Bowl with Ravens 49ers. But, we got what we got. And I think this will be an interesting matchup. I think it's probably going to be a defensive slog looking at it, but I got to do some more research before I'm ready to make the pick. The beauty of having 2 weeks before the Super Bowl. But I'm looking forward to seeing what we come up with, but I'm wondering how you were doing and how you felt about Week 21.
Yeah, I mean, 1-1, just like you. We had the same two picks. It looked like for a while the Lions were going to win. They were up 17. They could have gone up 17 once again, and we'll get into that. But it was disappointing overall that the Lions didn't win. And now we get 49ers, Chiefs, and it just doesn't feel like we have the two best teams in the Super Bowl. I know the Chiefs have looked good, or at least they look good against the Ravens, but this is a team that just really struggled the entire year. They barely won against bad teams. They lost to the Raiders on Christmas. Like this is not a team that looked like it was going to be going to the Super Bowl. And like I guess they're getting hot at the right moment, but and true, as long as they have Patrick Mahomes, like they can beat anyone, but just doesn't feel like they deserve to be there. I just wanted someone else. Maybe it was the Ravens or the Bills or whoever. And then with the NFC, like the Niners are fine, but it was still such a letdown that the Lions had that collapse. Even when they're up 17, I just didn't feel comfortable. Like I was telling you before we started recording, like I was really thinking about hedging my Lions bet with the Niners money line. I didn't even look at it because I was putting my son to bed, and then by the time I was done, like I was just like my mind was like out of it. But I just it's just really disappointing to see these two teams in the Super Bowl. Not so much the Niners, but the Chiefs really.
Yeah, and I think I'm right there with you on the Lions. The funny thing is, I didn't feel comfortable at halftime either. I was like starting to think like, all right, this is what a Lions Chiefs Super Bowl might look like, but I was also like, hey, this is like isn't a safe lead necessarily because the Lions, are one of those teams with a history of kind of bungling situations. As my dear friend and coworker is a longtime Lions fan, warned me, and at halftime he was messaging me and he was like, this lead is not even remotely safe. Like this, they're going to figure out a way to blow it. And lo and behold, they did. It was a certain combination of decision making, aggressiveness, some very bad execution more than anything else, and just some terrible luck. I mean, that Brandon Ayuk play. Every time there's some sort of helmet catch in the playoff, it seems to go against me and the teams that I'm pulling for. So I have a very bad connotation with things that go off a helmet or are caught pinned against the helmet for the most part. So once that happened, I was like, oh no, this is going to be trouble for the Lions. But I will give them this. I don't think as many people expected them to kind of be in that game. And certainly no one, I don't think, expected them to be up that big on the road at halftime. So even though it was a really disappointing ending, they did give the 49ers a run for their money. So credit to them for a great season. I will say that.
Yeah, it's funny about the helmet stuff. Yeah, I didn't get that much the first time around with David Tyree, but yeah, this one definitely hurt. Andrew asking, you guys gonna give your thoughts on the Super Bowl line / pick. Not so much pick because, like Jacob said, we have 2 weeks to analyze this, and I have some thoughts in my head about this game, but I didn't really like handicap it completely. So I don't know about the pick. The line is the Niners are they were -1.5, and now they're up to -2. It seems about right. Like I try to guess the line before I saw it, as I usually do with every game. And I thought it would be -2.5. So I saw the -1.5. I'm like, okay, point off, but not a big deal. And now I'm a half a point off. So it seems about right. I think the Niners deserve to be favored, but not favored by 3 on a neutral field. Just because, you have Patrick Mahomes. If you give the Chiefs +3, you're going to get a lot of money, probably sharp money on Kansas City. So I think this is about right. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be about right as well. I had thought in my head that it would probably be a 1 to 1.5 point spread. And that's kind of what it opened up as. And it usually moves in one direction, but I agree with you. It doesn't need to be near 3 because I think if you put it at 3 in favor of either side, the Sharps would hammer the side getting the 3. This is a matchup that I look at and I just say to myself, there's really not a lot of value here on this line. And I could really see it going either way. I think I'll have a better feel for it next time. I think the thing I do like more in this game, just that initial blush, is the over-under, I think, is 48.5. I would lean the under on this one because we've seen the Chiefs struggle to score at times this year. But also their defense in recent weeks has done a pretty good job of limiting quarterbacks and opposing offenses. Josh Allen had a good game against the Chiefs, but he kind of always does that. But they did a great job against Lamar Jackson. So wouldn't surprise me to see this be more of a defensive slog of a game. So that's my thoughts for right now. But yeah, next week I'll definitely feel probably a more convocation in my pick.
One thing I'll say about the Chiefs is that they tend to score only in one half. Like it's always like either the first half or the second half they don't score at all, and then the other half they score all their points. We saw that in the AFC Championship. And it's not just been this season; it was last year as well. I don't know what is going on with them. When that happens, but that is a trend I've noticed. So if that holds up again in this game, then the under is probably going to hit. So we'll get into all that. Please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would mean a lot to us. If you really want to help support the show, please subscribe because we're 62 shy of 4,000. And would love to get there by the Super Bowl and not much time left. So I'm going to have to start begging on Twitter. So please don't make me beg on Twitter. Also, if you really, really want to help support the show, please consider super chats because we make almost nothing on YouTube ads. It's pretty sad. And your super chats, like no matter what they are, will help immensely. And really, no matter what they are, unless they're under $1, we're going to make more from them than we are on YouTube ads. So it would be awesome if you would help support us that way. All right. So before we get into the games, there's some comments here. Someone Red Eye says, when the Lions held the Whiners to a field goal to start the second half, I really thought they had them. And then the 4th down, Dan went for it on 4th down to try to go 3 scores on the field goal would do the same. So I've seen this criticism, and I understand both angles. So at the time, I thought they should have gone for it. And I think that I don't blame Dan Campbell for going for 2 reasons. First, it would have been, I think, a 46 or 47-yard field goal, something like that. And it's no guarantee that their kicker is going to make that. In fact, we saw Jake Moody miss a 48-yard field goal early in the game. So like a 48-yard field goal is what, like 55% to hit. So I don't know. I'd rather go for it with my weapons. The Lions had such a great offense and they were moving the ball so well. I thought they should have gone for it. And then like the second reason is like they executed fine. It was just, they had the good play call. It was just Josh Reynolds dropped it. And like if Reynolds just does his job and catch the ball, they keep moving the ball and then they have a good chance to go up 21 instead of just 17. And really not really 17 because they could miss the field goal and give the Niners great field position. So I didn't mind it. It's just like Josh Reynolds has to catch the ball. Like, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I 100% agree with you. If I was the coach of that team in that scenario, I probably would have kicked it. That is just my philosophy because I would say to myself, all right, here's why I would kick it is because, Badgley makes it, you're up 3 scores. If he misses it, our defense has been playing well, and they can capitalize on that momentum from a missed field goal, but they're less likely to do that than a 4th down stop. So in my head, I might do it that way. However, I don't think Dan Campbell's decision was wrong. I think it was a true analytical coin flip. If you look at it, I think it was 0.2% better in terms of win probability to go for it. So you can understand that's a very small margin. So that really means you could do either. But with what Campbell has done all season, totally makes sense that he would do it. He's put the trust in his team. And you're definitely right. If Josh Reynolds catches that ball, we are not having this debate. We're not seeing people like Mike Florio trash analytics and say this is absolute garbage. And sometimes you just got to go with the smart play. Dan Campbell went with the smart play ahead of halftime to go up 17 because, that was another time when I think we would have said, oh, in the regular season, he probably goes for the touchdown there. At that point, he went for the 3, and I think that was the correct move because it was a chip shot field goal. As you referenced, longer field goal in that scenario. So, yeah, I like going for it for sure. Jared Goff made the play. Was the throw a little bit off to the right? Yep. Did Reynolds get both hands off on it? Absolutely. And he needs to catch that. And really, if he does catch that, we're not having that debate. And then late in the game when they're down 3, that was another long field goal. And I actually thought in that scenario, people were telling me, they were saying, hey, the Lions hadn't scored in the second half all up to that point. Why would you go for it there? And my thought was, well, even if you make the field goal, the 49ers could run out the clock on you on the next drive. And I know they got the touchdown anyway, and maybe it gave them the momentum. But in both circumstances, I understand why Dan Campbell did it. And look, if you look at how he's coached this year, that is what he does. And the math will tell you that, yeah, maybe it was a coin flip chance. Maybe the field goal would be safer in terms of public opinion on it. But they had their chances. Reynolds just dropped the ball, the first one. If he catches that, we may have a completely different game.
It was so much in that game. You had Reynolds dropping the ball on 4th down. You had the Detroit defensive player drop the interception that just magically sailed into Brandon Ayuk's hands. Then you had the Jahmyr Gibbs fumble. Then you had Sam Laporta drop the pass, and then Josh Reynolds dropped the pass on 3rd down. It became like the Murphy's Law for the Lions in the second half. It's just so frustrating to watch. It just fell apart, at the seams, just slowly but surely, it just withered away. That lead withered away, and as long as when the Reynolds drop happened, I'm I felt a little worried, and then when I saw that Ayuk catch, I'm oh man, we're done. and then Gibbs promptly fumbled. I'm when they got the ball back, I'm okay, can you get a long drive here, get at least a field goal? It's no, Gibbs fumbles right away. It's just it was so brutal to watch. Just hated it. So
the funny thing too, if I may interject here, is that Dan Campbell's absorbed so much of the blame, and I've seen enough people talk about the Josh Reynolds drop, and he had another drop later in the game on a 3rd down where Goff threw it perfectly to him, right in the chest, right in his hands, and he just completely I don't even know what he did to it, but he dropped it. That one was worse than the 4th down drop and really hurt them because that was a tie game at that point. But I feel like the person who's gotten off with the least criticism at this point, for the biggest play, Jahmyr Gibbs, you cannot fumble in that scenario. You're already losing momentum at that point, and you're saying to yourself, man, all right, we got to have a good drive here. And on the very first play, he ran the wrong way on the handoff, and then just the exchange point was gone. And I get it, he's a rookie, and it's a rookie mistake, but I feel like so much of the discourse has been about Dan Campbell on the 4th downs that people haven't even touched the, oh my goodness, Jahmyr Gibbs, you've been so good, but that mistake was so bad and really, really swung the game.
Yeah, it was one of many mistakes, but that one just killed it. Because the momentum was already shifting and then just completely shifted it toward the Niners. So just giving them a short field when their offense was already clicking, it's just that was it. That was basically the final nail in the coffin. Even though they still had more time to play, I thought that was the play that swung it completely in the Niners' favor. Let's see. John saying Mahomes is now 147-1 as an underdog. Yeah, something like that. Feels that way at least. Andrew saying, which side are you guys leaning in the Super Bowl? I honestly keep going back and forth on it. I don't know yet because On one hand, I think the Niners are the better team. On the other hand, the Chiefs have Mahomes. But I think if you go position by position, the Niners are probably better across the board. So I'm probably going to be in San Francisco, but I don't know yet. I could change my mind. Any early thoughts, or do you have any?
Yeah, my lean is on the Chiefs early because of what you said. I think Patrick Mahomes, you have to trust the quarterback in this situation. And I've done a little research into Brock Purdy's performance. He's definitely been good this year, but he obviously benefits from a great supporting cast. What's telling is I've looked that he's played three teams that rank top 10 in both defensive DVOA and defensive EPA, two of the more important defensive metrics. They are the Ravens, the Browns, and the Cowboys. Obviously, he played very well against the Cowboys, had 4 touchdowns in that game. But the other 2 games, he really struggled. And, I know you could say, like, oh, the Ravens are a better defense than the Chiefs. And you could look at the Browns game and say he was missing some players and the wind in that game was bad. But what I'm looking at is the Chiefs defense ranks top 10 in both those categories and has really good weapons in the secondary. So if they can make him have to work more to get the ball to his receiving weapons, I think it could be a longer day for him. That's one of the reasons I also think it's going to be a lower scoring game. But, this line doesn't have a lot of value, so I have not fully decided, but my lean is on the Chiefs for that reason.
Yeah, it makes sense. We'll get into it next week. The boss asking, have you taken a look at the Super Bowl odds for next year? Anything that catches your eye? If so, I took a glimpse at it. It wasn't available until recently. Real quick, I like off the top of my head, I think that the Rams at what were they 30-1? Yeah, and the Bears at 40-1 were the two teams that stuck out to me, especially the Bears. They were so hot down the stretch. One of the better teams in the NFL, like once Justin Fields returned, and then they had Montez Sweat. No, they also have 2 first-round picks, and they also have a ton of cap space. So like they could sign a bunch of guys and really just bolster the roster, which is already good to begin with. So the Bears are a team that I was high to begin with, and then 41 are good. Those are good odds. We might be able to see something better. Like I'm just looking at FanDuel, so you could shop around once all the sports books have the Super Bowl odds, and like maybe you can find like a 50-1 or maybe even 60-1. But yeah, the Bears are certainly like I've interested in them, and then the Rams were the number 1 team in the metrics, and they took the Lions down to the wire. If they weren't 0 for 3 in the red zone, they probably would have won that game. And I was thinking about this. I was like, what if it was Niners Rams in the NFC Championship? Like, I don't think the Rams blow that. Like, I have more faith in Sean McVay, and I like Dan Campbell and Jared Goff. I just trust Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford more because they've been there already. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams were in the Super Bowl had they won that first round matchup against the Lions.
Yeah, I like both of those teams. The Bears were always going to be the one that I have circled for that reason that you said. Having Montez Sweat, massive difference maker for that defense. They're keeping continuity on the defensive side of the ball, too, with Matt Eberflus staying, so I think that's good. And I really like Shane Waldron. He coached at UMass at one point. That's not exactly the reason why, but he did a good job on that Seattle staff helping develop Geno Smith. I know Dave Canales got a lot of the credit for that, rightfully so, but Waldron did a good job there too. So I think he'll get the most out of whoever they have at quarterback next year. I imagine it'll be Caleb Williams, but that team could be really, really explosive. So I think bare minimum at 40-1, you're going to get a fun, plucky team that should make a playoff run in that NFC.
Yeah, I don't know about Waldron. I don't hate the hire. I don't love it either. I think it's okay. Like that season with Seattle in 2022, they had Canales, and then when Canales left, like the offense took a hit. It wasn't that much of a hit. Like they still were okay, but they just weren't as effective without Canales. So I wonder, like how much Waldron had to do with that 2022 result. But like I said, they could have done worse. Like they could have hired Arthur Smith. So I don't. I think this grade's about in the middle, like B- or something. I don't. Like I said, I think it's a fine hire, but not great or anything.
Yeah, I probably give it a B+ just because I think he'll have more upside. I think part of the reason for the regression last year for the Seattle offense is Pete Carroll just runs a more conservative system there. He loves to run the ball first, and I think that kind of took a hit. Maybe Waldron running his own thing will be a little bit better, but I get your concerns because it's always hard to parse out like, all right, which coach was most successful for the success because
Mm-hmm.
we learned that with Tampa Bay. We were all like, oh, Byron Leftwich will be great taking over for Bruce Arians. And it was like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. And then we saw Canales come in this year there and get Baker Mayfield a playoff win. So coaching matters, man. It really does.
That's definitely true. Jesse asking, what do you think about the Super Bowl line movement? Open Niners -3, bet down to 1 almost right away. Now it's -2 everywhere. I'm sure I'm on an island, but took Niners -1 late Sunday night. Bang, bang. Yeah, well, good call on taking the Niners. I didn't see it at -3, I guess, because like I was behind on watching the game because, like I said, I put my son to bed around halftime. So I was trying to catch up. So I didn't see the line open at -3, but I saw I saw that there's a high number of tickets on the Chiefs and more money on the Niners. So it makes sense that the Niners are getting some action here. Looks like there's a bit of sharp money in the Niners, but like nothing crazy. So I don't know why it moved down, but like if people got cheap, like if Chiefs +3 was available, like I imagine the sharps took that, and then like other sharps or maybe the same sharps, who knows? Maybe they took the Niners -1. So it looks like the pros are on both sides of it, but only Chiefs at +3, whereas they're taking the Niners at -1 and -1.5.
Yeah, I think that was a phantom 3, and I think once some of the sharps saw it, they probably hammered it, saying, "Yeah, open for 4 minutes at -3." That ought to tell you that people just started hammering the +3, and the books quickly adjusted it. And it makes sense because you're talking about getting the better quarterback in the matchup as a 3-point underdog, and this is a guy who's been now in his 4th Super Bowl. That doesn't mean he's going to win every single one of them. We obviously saw him lose to the Buccaneers, but I think if you're getting experience and battle tested Super Bowl quarterback at +3, I think the sharps take it every time. And then once it's off the 3, then they'll come in on another side. And it looks like that's the 49ers right now. But hey, we'll have to see how this one develops. The Super Bowl line movement's always interesting.
Yeah. I mean, we have 2 weeks of this, so who knows? Maybe it'll get to 3. I don't think so, but I guess crazier things have happened. John says I would have won up 3 scores and kept pressure. Like I said, field goal is no guarantee. Like, what if you miss the field goal? It's like I think it's like a 50-50 proposition to hit the field goal, and I think it's more than 50% to complete that pass to Reynolds. And Sue says that throw to Reynolds was slightly altered by the tip of the line of scrimmage, went from a spiral to a wobbler. I actually didn't see that, but I mean, you could be right, and maybe that's why Reynolds dropped the ball. But I mean, Reynolds, like Jacob said, Reynolds dropped another ball later in the game, so let's not completely absolve him if that was tipped.
Yeah, I didn't see the tip either, but I'm going to go back and watch that because now I'm curious. Because that would at least explain it a little bit. Like that's the thing that kills me is you see that sort of thing happen. Sometimes you're like, how did it drop? And you're like, oh, it got ever so slightly altered on the path. So if that is true, then he at least has a more legitimate excuse than just, all right, I picked a bad time to drop one.
Yeah. John saying running the ball in their 2 minutes down 10 with all 3 timeouts left was staying true to who they are. You know what's funny is like I remember watching that sequence and I'm like, oh man, I wish they had the 2-minute warning so they could run the ball once, and then they just ran. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, hurry up, and then they call timeout. I'm like, oh crap, this is worse because now they wouldn't get time. Like they'd have to recover the onside kick at that point. That was just horrible.
Yeah, that's a coaching gaffe. I think that's the worst thing that Campbell did all game. Because if you pass it on 3rd down and fail, then you can run it on 4th because the clock's going to stop either way, and it'll basically be game over. But you can't run it on 3rd down in that situation and not get it because it made the onside kick a necessity, like you said. But also, the play before that, and how did Anthony Ferguson not score? It took him like 4 minutes to turn after catching the ball, and he stepped out of bounds. He could have just dove for the pylon, and I think you would have had it. But hey, he was on the practice squad, I think, for most of the season and only got elevated because Brock Wright got hurt. So believe it or not, Brock Wright not being in that game played a big role down the stretch because of that specific play.
I wonder if Zach Ertz would have done better there.
It's a question worth asking for sure because I was surprised they didn't activate him for that game.
Yeah, I'd rather have him on the field than Ferkser. Even if he's out of shape, like still, I think he's a better option. But yeah, it was. Well, maybe he didn't dive because he watched Zay Flowers in the other game. We'll get to that in a second. Super says, I knew it wasn't this season, but I still remember the Swifty Chiefs dismantling the Winers after spawning in the 10. On October 23rd, 2022, it was 44-23. That was Christian McCaffrey's first game. I remember the Niners were up 10. Garoppolo was terrible in the second half. And Mahomes was on fire in that game. I remember he just couldn't be stopped. But that was I don't know. I mean, I want to say I was about to say Travis Kelce wasn't decrepit in that game because he was great in 2022. Suddenly Kelce has come to life after just being dead for the entire second half of the season. He had a great game against the Chargers before the bye. And then he just did. Actually, it was slightly before the bye, and then after that, he just did nothing the rest of the year, and then he just came to life in the playoffs just randomly. So, I don't know what to make of that, but yeah, it is. And that game was recent. That was last year, so maybe the Chiefs have the Niners number or something, and you could be onto something with the Chiefs pick.
Yeah, I think that's a good game to explore at least. Obviously, Brock Purdy's better than Jimmy Garoppolo, so that's a big difference maker. And McCaffrey with more experience in the system matters as well. But yeah, I'm going to go back and look at that one for sure. Good point out there.
Yeah, that win or that loss for the Niners, that was 1 week after. I'm sure you'll remember this game. It was 1 week after they got trashed by the Falcons.
Yeah, that one was fun.
The Niners are missing their entire roster. Nick Bosa was out, everyone was out for them. The Falcons won, and that was when the Falcons were undefeated against the spread. And that following week, the Niners got trashed, and the Falcons also got trashed by the Bengals. So yeah, I remember that clearly. Alan says, Kadarius Toney Super Bowl MVP odds. What would you bet? How high would it have to be for you to bet this? 100 million to 1 or something?
Something like that. I mean, we don't even know if he's going to play in the Super Bowl.
Right.
He's saying he's not hurt. The Chiefs are like, no, you have been hurt. I think actually I might play him in the DFS lineup if he plays because if he gets on the field, he is a threat to score and he might return punts. But I can't imagine him being Super Bowl MVP almost under any circumstance.
No, I can't. I just what would have to happen, and because if he has a great game, Mahomes probably has a great game, right? So I don't know. I just can't see that happening, but I don't know. I would say crazier things have happened, but they really haven't. It's just yeah. Anyway, yeah. As Jesse says, that was McCaffrey's first game with the Niners. Yes, it was his first game. They had him heavily involved on the first drive, and then he didn't get much action after that because they were still working him into the offense. So it wasn't the Niners' true offense. Plus, that was Garoppolo still quarterbacking the Niners, and Garoppolo, like I said, he had a horrible game, and especially in the second half. I know he had a couple turnovers in the red zone too, so he really ruined that game. Mike saying, well, it's amazing the way he remembers all these games 2 years ago. I remember losing money on that game, and that's why I remember it so vividly. Just if I'd won money, I probably wouldn't remember it at all. But I remember being very tilted that I had the Niners, and they were up 10-0. I was like, yeah, this is great, and then they lost.
I think I was on the opposite side of you in that game, and I remember being like, oh, I'm toast, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh, nope, I got that one.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So John says since 2010, field goal kickers from 45 out make 78.1% of the time. I think Badgley is worse than that. I think from 40 to 49 this year, it was 77%, and that's 40 to 45. That includes 40 to 45. So 46 and longer. I'm sure it's lower than that. So I'd imagine it's in the 50 to 60% range, I think. But I saw something about 48 or 49% on Twitter. I can't exactly tell you what exactly that was, but someone they did the math and everything, and considering the conditions in San Francisco, that's what it was. It's 48 or 47%. I can't remember.
Yeah, Badgley, for context, I know it wasn't a 50-plus yard kick, but it's 2 yards off. From 50-plus in his career, Badgley is 5 of 13. He has a strong leg. He just isn't accurate after a certain point. So he's 5 of 13 from 50-plus, 37 of 48 from 40 to 49. So right about the 77% mark, but I don't know what split of that is 45 and beyond. Wouldn't surprise me if it would surprise me if he's not more accurate from inside 45 than he is
Right.
outside of it.
Yeah, exactly. And now it says, was joking about Tony. Any realistic longer odds for MVP? We'll get to that next week. I actually have not looked at the Super Bowl MVP odds. I have some bets. Like I imagine, like Chris Jones would be a nice bet, but I don't even know if that's a long shot because he's so well known. It could always be someone random, like catching, like getting 2 pick sixes or something. But yeah, I'll have to look at we'll look at the odds and we'll give that to you next week. Like I said, I haven't looked at anything. Matthias said Dan Campbell should be fired. I feel like one bad decision. Well, I agree with what you said, Jacob. Like the decision to run the ball there at the end, that was the bad decision, not fourth down. But like he's done so much good that like one bad move should not erase it, you know? Like think about how bad the Lions have been for so long. And then you get this guy who takes us to the NFC Championship and he makes a bad decision with like down 10 even. Like the chances of them coming back were like so slim anyway. Like I don't know. I disagree with this.
Yeah, you can't fire Dan Campbell. He got the Lions to their best regular season, one of their best seasons in franchise. I think best season in franchise history, at least recent franchise history since 1957. You can't fire him after that. I mean, you can take issue with some of the stuff he's doing, but almost no other coach in the league, I think, would get as much out of Detroit as Dan Campbell has. Maybe some of the all-time greats, like to put Andy Reid there, he might do a great job, but man, I don't know. I think Dan Campbell's a perfect fit there, and you got to let him try to run this thing back. I mean, he got Ben Johnson to stay another year. It looked like he was gone. Ben Johnson staying. That's incredible.
In fairness, though, like if your best option is Washington, then like maybe you should stay anyway. That's just, I don't know. I'd rather just be an assistant than be a head coach of that disaster. Super Nice says, do you remember that in that game, some guy named Purdy relieved Garoppolo, went 4-9 for 66 yards. Purdy was he was so great in the preseason that year. So like when he took over for Garoppolo, like I was pretty confident in them, and I remember betting the Niners pretty for like a high unit count the next week. I think the next game they had was against the Buccaneers, if I remember correctly, and they were like only -3.5 at home. And like think about how weird or how low that line is. Like given what we saw at the end of that year with like Brady struggling down the stretch and like the Niners getting to the NFC Championship, like that line should have been like 7.5. It was just so off, like at least 7.5. Yeah. Alan asking, Kelsey retirement room is swirling. Maybe you guess it.
Yeah, MVP, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and you have the whole narrative with Taylor Swift too. So, yeah, like I said, I don't know what the odds are, but I think that Kelsey catches a couple touchdowns. Like there is some voter fatigue with Mahomes because he's won Super Bowl MVP a couple times, and maybe they'll just give it to Kelsey because of the narrative too. So I can see that.
Plus, no tight end has ever won Super Bowl MVP, and we all know that the NFL loves an opportunity to have something happen for the first time. So, if Mahomes throws 2 touchdowns and they're both to Kelsey, very easily could be him.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Just says for what it's worth, Arizona is plus what is this 30,000 MVP at William Hill? Yeah, that's way too short. Add some more zeros on that. John says it would be pretty cutthroat if they fired Campbell, promoted Ben Johnson. Yeah, I agree with that.
That's also something that I want to point out, that Ben Johnson, I don't think would accept that. I know that sounds weird to say, but I think it was a similar situation when Washington had Sean McVay as their offensive coordinator. Like they could have considered firing Jay Gruden, but I think Sean McVay was like, look, you can't fire Gruden and then promote me because I feel bad because this guy gave me my opportunities here. It just creates a very weird situation. I know teams have done it before, but where Campbell and Johnson are so closely linked, I think it would be very difficult to do something like that.
Yeah, and I think Johnson would have trouble getting a job if he were to get fired after that. Just because like NFL teams don't like that sort of betrayal, So, Jesse says, did you guys talk about Tom Munkin's awful game plan versus the Chiefs? 6 total carries for the Ravens running back. What the F? Yeah, we did. We spent a lot of time on Niners Lions. So let's get to the other game. Yeah, well, first of all, that was terrible. I remember seeing Gus Edwards' stats, and like, remember Gus Edwards had that first carry, 15 yards. I'm like, oh my God, there we go. Gus Edwards, he should have a good game against the Chiefs, who have been struggling against the run all year. And then, of course, they don't run the ball at all. Lamar Jackson scrambles 8 times. Like, I know that they had a good game plan against Lamar Jackson, but still, like, you have to get him more than eight scrambles. It felt like the Ravens played into the Chiefs' hand the entire game, and then when they had an opportunity, they just screw it up. Like well, first of all, Zay Flowers taunting, which is, I don't know, if this is week 8 of the regular season, of course you call that taunting, but like in the AFC Championship, I don't know. Like I hate when guys taunt like that, but like it's the AFC Championship, like you can't make that call. I think that was terrible. And then Flowers fumbles into the end zone. Like, of course he fumbled. It's like how many fumbles at the 1 yard line have gone against us all year? Like it was just meant to be, right? But yeah, it's just, and then Lamar Jackson, who threw that horrible interception to triple coverage. It felt like the Ravens could have won that game, and they just like played up to their ability. I don't think the better team won the game. I think if they play it 10 times, I think the Ravens win 6 out of 10. So yeah. So what are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, I think the Ravens were definitely the better team. Like their defense really carried them. If not for those original 2 drives by the Chiefs where Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce made like absolute ridiculous Looney Tunes type plays where you were like, how on earth did Patrick Mahomes get that ball to Travis Kelce, like falling backwards? Like it was incredible what they were doing those first 2 drives. After that, the Ravens defense completely shut them down for the most part. I think they got touchdowns on the first 2 drives. The rest of the game, the Ravens allowed 3 points. But the offensive game plan, as Jesse alluded to, was absolutely terrible. And I really think it boiled down to this. Todd Monken was so confident in Lamar Jackson's ability to operate within the pocket, with something that he's done at a higher level than he's ever done this year, that he wanted to kind of make this a proving ground and say, hey, we're going to dismantle this defense with our passing game and not worry about the run as much. And that came back to completely bite them. It's like they thought they were going to get the Chiefs off balance by going pass heavy as opposed to run heavy. And like you said, it played into their strengths. And here's the thing on the Zay Flowers taunting. Normally, I would agree with you, and I don't like taunting calls, but that just felt like such terrible timing from him to do that. Like they hadn't made a big play all game. He finally made a big play. He's getting up. He shoved him into the ground and stood over him and made fun of him. And like, I don't like the rules necessarily, but like that is textbook taunting. And I know he's a rookie, but you gotta know not to do that in that situation. So like, as soon as I saw him do that, I was like, oh my God, he's going to get penalized. And he did. And I get it. It's not a fun rule. It takes some of the fun out of the game. But I was just in that moment, I was like, you just can't do that. It's one of those very simple things that the Ravens struggled to do all game. At one point, they clotheslined Patrick Mahomes while he was running to make like a very difficult throw, just hit him in the helmet. I think they had 4 personal foul penalties in the AFC Championship game. They just did not come ready and focused enough to play. I don't want to say they played cocky or anything, but it's almost like it was a cocky game plan they had on offense. And once things didn't go well for them, they could never quite adjust. So I definitely agree with you that they were the better team. And I think their defense really probably deserved to win that game for the effort they put forth. But credit to the Chiefs for limiting the Ravens all day and just they made Lamar Jackson, the NFL MVP for this season, look absolutely incompetent in the pocket and just totally uncomfortable. So, I mean, good win for the Chiefs. Great game plan from Steve Spagnuolo. But, man, what a missed opportunity for Baltimore. It felt like there was a much, much better way to go about that whole game.
Yeah, the Chiefs didn't score a single point in the second half. The Ravens defense really stepped up in the second half, and it's a shame that the offense had to waste that opportunity. Now, with the taunting, like I completely agree with what you said. Like that was textbook taunting for sure. And when it happened, I'm like, oh crap, they're gonna call taunting on this, and they did. And like I think you call that 100 out of 100 times in the regular season. But man, in the AFC Championship, like as a referee, I don't think you can decide a game that way. Like just you need to have the best team win the game, and to penalize the team for that, man, like on second biggest stage of the season for that team. I don't know. I think you let that slide. Like, I think it has, like, if the guy like spikes the ball at the guy, like throws the ball at the guy, like, yeah, sure. But like, he stood over him. Like, it wasn't like, it was egregious, but it wasn't like super egregious, I guess. I don't know. Like I said, regular season 100% of the time. But I think that deep into the playoffs, I just let it go. But
Yeah, it's almost like they need some sort of warning system in the playoff. Like they kind of do that in some sports where it's like, all right, don't do that again. If you do, we're definitely going to flag you. And it just kind of puts them on notice. I
yeah,
know some people will be like, well, that's what the flag is designed for. But at the same time, there was a lot of like Travis Kelce was getting in a lot of people's faces too, and he didn't get called for anything. So,
yeah.
I know some that rubbed some people the wrong way. That was getting some attention.
Yeah, it was pretty chippy even before the game too. So like that could have gone back to something that occurred before kickoff. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I'd let it go. Um, let's see. John says they wanted Lamar to win as a pocket passer. How'd that work out for them? I think Lamar has as many playoff wins as MVPs. Yeah. If I were Lamar Jackson, he's going to win MVP. I'd be like, I don't accept this award, just based on how I play, because it feels so hollow at this point. Because like he's going to win MVP. It's like, but he wasn't good in the biggest stage of the year. And I know it's a regular season award, but I always thought that MVP should encompass the playoffs as well. I just don't know why it doesn't. And at this point, I do my seasonal awards, which I'm working on right now. Um, I give the award to Patrick Mahomes because it's weird because he's had a bad statistical season, but like think about how bad his supporting cast is. Like it feels like he dragged that team kicking and screaming to the Super Bowl. Like I don't think I really don't know how many quarterbacks do that. Like with this horrible roster, or at least the offensive roster. I mean, not defense, but like they're edge blocking terrible all year. The receivers outside of Rashee Rice, nothing all year, and Mahomes just got them to the Super Bowl. It's so remarkable of what he's done.
Yeah, Mahomes has had a great year. I think you could make a pretty good case for Josh Allen too. I mean, he had a better supporting cast with the Bills, but he basically brought them back from the dead. And I know he had that missed opportunity at the end to beat the Chiefs and just needed to take some either underneath throws or make a better throw over the middle of the field and didn't do it. But I mean, everyone was writing off the Bills. It was, oh, the Bills are going to miss the playoffs. So I think he's in the mix there. And if you were going based solely off regular season stats, I think Dak Prescott had a pretty good case for it as well. Obviously, the wins against higher end teams are what keeps him from winning that. And the playoff exit would as well. But I think, yeah, you look at those dual threat quarterbacks like Mahomes and Jackson, and that have been able to win more consistently, or Mahomes and Josh Allen and Jackson. But the most consistent winner of the bunch is Mahomes.
Yeah. 1777 says, told you it was going to be Niners Chiefs, not your pick of Ravens Lions. It really could have been any of the four, or I guess, like any of those matchups, really. I mean, those games could have gone either way, both of them. And he says, I'm going to do you solid and tell you the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl. I would love to hear why. But yeah, I'm considering them. I might take them or the Niners. Not sure yet. Almost scored a touchdown on the drive anyways. Yeah, that was the same drive as the Flowers fumble. But you never know. Who knows? Like it could have gone different. Allen played way better than Lamar, which is definitely true. And Justice says, I agree. MVP Coach of the Year should be cumulative. Season awards, including playoffs. I think Dan Campbell should have won Coach of the Year over Stefanski, but the closing line begs to differ. I think that also D'Amico Ryans deserves consideration as well. They both choked and sold out versus the Chiefs, Allen and Lamar Jackson. The 49ers to win the Super Bowl, I mean, it's possible. Of course it's possible. They're favored. And John says, how did Allen choke? Well, he missed the throw in the end zone at the end. So, I mean, he screwed up. Stephon Diggs screwed up. The kicker screwed up. Everyone wants to blame the kicker, but I feel like everyone had a hand in that loss.
Yeah, definitely. And, the thing is, like, Josh Allen played pretty well for the whole game. So it was a final drive deal with him as opposed to a full game thing. But, yeah, I'm interested to see how Lamar Jackson comes back from this playoff loss, though, because I think we saw him get so much better his first year under Monken. I think that this will probably light a fire under him that has been lit a lot, but he hasn't been healthy going into the offseason. with a fully healthy offseason, if he is in good shape there, he might be able to take another step forward here. And hey, maybe they'll get him another good weapon to go with Flowers, Beckham, and Bateman, because I still think that they need one more better outside threat there. It's not that they haven't put resources into it. They did a lot last year, but I still think that they could use one guy to push Beckham into the third receiver role, and it'll be a lot better.
You're not a Nelson Aguilar fan?
I mean, I'm fine with him as like a fourth receiver, right? Like that's fine. But yeah, no, he was on the field. He was trying to make plays a little too much for my liking in that game.
Yeah. It's also noted. You have to note that Mark Andrews wasn't healthy at all. He was just out there doing a few things, but he's going to be healthy next year, presumably. So that'll help too. It says, yeah, Walter football. You can make a case that the teams that played better lost this weekend. I can make a case that the Ravens outplayed the Chiefs, and also make a case that the Lions outplayed the Niners. Yeah, that was really any of those four teams that could have won, in any combination. So, really, it was, it really had to do with luck, really, because you had the Flowers fumble right near the goal line. You had the Lions drop the interception that sailed right into the hands of Ayuk, and Josh Reynolds dropping that fourth down play, and Gibbs fumbling. These games could have gone either way, and that's why it's so depressing that the Lions lost for us, because we had them at long odds to win the Super Bowl, and yeah, we didn't hedge. So I guess lesson learned.
Wouldn't it have been so fun to see the Chiefs Lions open the season and then close the season? I was kind of hoping that would happen. That seemed like a fun storyline.
That's what Quacky said. So yeah, I agree with it. I think that would have been awesome. Jesse says both the Ravens and Lions outgained the Chiefs and the 49ers in the championship games. Yeah, the Ravens outgained the Chiefs in yards and yards per play. So it's just kind of telling. And 1777 says Chiefs scoring 0 points second half as well. Yeah, that was like I said, the Chiefs do that. Like the Chiefs have these halves, and not just this game, a lot where they just don't do anything, and then the other half they do all their scoring. I don't know why. Like this is dating back to last year too. I have no idea why this happens, but it does. Think back to the Super Bowl last year against the Eagles. Like they did nothing in the first half, and the second half they did all their scoring. The Bengals game in the AFC Championship where they lost. Remember they were on fire to start the game, and the second half they did nothing. What's overtime? The Bengals won. Like this happens all the time with them. I just don't know why. But yeah, that could end up costing them. But anyway, let's jump to coaching hires, hiring grades. I think we talked about Gerard Mayo earlier, so I don't think we have to go back to that. And I think we talked about Cowboys retaining Mike McCarthy, right?
I think we did, and if not, one sentence recap. It's like, hey, why did you do this? Like it's been the same story. Like 12-5, 3 straight years, awesome. Early playoff exit every single year, also. So, I mean, something's got to change there. He's a good regular season coach, doesn't get done in the postseason. So, I agree with your F there.
So, we have it might be up on the site. If not, it's gonna be up tomorrow morning. Charlie is at Mobile covering the Senior Bowl, and he has an interesting post about the Cowboys and what they did or almost did with Mike McCarthy. Jerry Jones, according to Charlie, and you can read about this more on the site. Jerry Jones was very close to firing Mike McCarthy, and he was talked out of it. I don't know by whom, but he was talked out of it. And had he fired Mike McCarthy, a guy he was going to interview for the head coaching job was Jason Witten. Yes. So yeah, you can read more about that on the site come tomorrow morning. I was shocking to say the least to hear Jason Witten as Jason Witten right now is coaching high school football. I don't know why Jerry Jones would interview Witten now. Like maybe he wouldn't have been his prime candidate, but he was going to give Witten an interview for the job. So not to say that he was going to be favorite, like I said. But,
yeah. I am very excited to read this post from Charlie now. Charlie does great work, and unearthing that sort of stuff is the stuff I love to read from him, man.
Yep, he's the best. That was incredible to hear. But anyway, the Raiders hiring Antonio Pierce. Do we get to this? Because this is on January 19. I feel like we may have done that one as well because we did a show after that. Real quick, I think this is a good decision by the Raiders. They let Bisaccia go, which ended up being a mistake because they went with Josh McDaniels. Like at least at least Mark Davis is not repeating mistakes. So the Raiders players love playing for Pierce. In fact, Devontae Adams said he would consider he would demand a trade if Pierce was gone. So I like the Raiders keeping Pierce. What do you think?
I do too. I think Max Crosby was in a similar boat. I think he was saying, "You didn't listen to us on Versace. If you don't listen to us on Pierce, I'm going to leave." So I think B plus that you've given is dead on here because we saw he got the most out of the defense. The players love him, and like you said, it's not the same mistake. That's the most important thing. If Mark Davis had gone out and tried to dangle a lot of money or anything to get like Bill Belichick or Ben Johnson or Jim Harbaugh or one of these big names on the market and let Pierce go, he would have just faced so many team chemistry issues that the Raiders would basically be back to square one in a rebuild. Now they at least have some culture, and we'll see what happens there. But if Antonio Pierce fails, it's not going to destroy this team. They'll be able to move on and say, well, we tried what you wanted to the players. So I think it's a smart move.
Yeah, John saying Pierce is in the same division as Reed, Harbaugh, and Peyton. Best of luck. Well, I don't know how much longer Reed has. I feel like it wouldn't surprise me at all if he retires after the season. To be honest, so he's an old man. Like how old is Andy Reid? Quick Google search. He is 65. Oh wow, I actually thought he'd be closer to 70. So maybe not. I thought he'd be like 69 or 70, but yeah, he's 65. So well, never mind about that. But Sean Payton didn't really show much this year, so maybe it's just Reed and Harbaugh you have to worry about. Yeah, 77 says that their talent's low here, but they beat Kansas City. Yeah, they for sure. I mean, their defense was so great in the second half of the year. Pierce got Robert Spillane to play extremely well. Crosby is an amazing player. So they have a great defense. They just need a quarterback. So
yeah, they find a quarterback. That team's going to be pesky to say the least.
Yeah. We talked about Brian Callahan briefly last week because there were rumors that the Titans hired Brian Callahan, but it wasn't finalized until the next day. So I gave this a B. I feel like the Titans could have done better. It seems like he's a downgrade from Mike Vrabel, but I don't think this is a bad hire either because he's done some really great work with the quarterbacks. And you could say, okay, yeah, obviously Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow is a great talent, but think about like what he did with Jake Browning too. I mean, Jake Browning was an undrafted free agent. Browning, I looked this up actually. He bounced back and forth between the practice squad and the regular and the 53-man roster 22 times in his career, which is crazy. And then we saw him have some great starts. He actually had the highest completion percentage in the NFL for any quarterback with 100 or more throws. So he did some great work with Browning. So, I like this hire. I don't love it. Cause I'm still upset that they fired Vrabel, but, I think it's a decent hire. What do you think about this one? I give it a B.
Yeah, I think if you were to average together like the firing Vrabel and hiring Callahan, I'd probably give it like a C minus. Failure for firing Vrabel, and then I think the B grade for Callahan is about right. I agree with you. I think it's all about the quarterbacks, Jake Browning's development, and Joe Burrow too. Like his first season, Joe Burrow had some good moments, but the team was bad. But once they got more talent around him and better protected him and made sure he was healthy, that offense kind of hummed at a lot of different points. And it'll be important for them for the Titans as they look to develop that quarterback position, whether it's Will Levis or someone else they bring in there. I think having an offensive mind like Callahan definitely has upside. I would probably prefer to have Vrabel over him if I was starting a team today. But, if the Titans wanted to go through a rebuild with an offensive-minded workflow there, Callahan was a solid choice, though. There are a few other guys I would have liked to get ahead of him.
Yeah. Just saying, Chiefs are 2-3 straight up versus NFC teams this season. Wins versus the Bears and Vikings. Losses to the Lions, Eagles, and Packers. It's worth noting that the loss to the Lions, they didn't have Kelsey or Chris Jones, but definitely noted for sure. All right, the next hire is Chargers hiring Jim Harbaugh. If they feel like he was the crown jewel of the coaching circuit this offseason. I don't know. Like, how do you not give this an A+? Like, Harbaugh was terrific with the Niners. In fact, when he took a job with Michigan, I remember doing a show with Matt VI, who was the original co-host on the WalterFootball.com podcast. And I remember Matt VI saying, this is such a shame that Harbaugh's leaving. We're losing a great coach to college ranks. But yeah, Harbaugh's back. He did a great job at Michigan. I mean, like, it doesn't seem like he's lost a step at all since he was with the Niners about a decade ago. So, the NFL is better off with him being there because he's a great coach, and for the first time since Marty Schottenheimer, it feels like the Chargers have a good coach on the sideline. So I love this move. It's an A+ for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is fantastic. I mean, if you are looking for a guy to develop a quarterback, Jim Harbaugh is one of the on the short list of guys you want there. He took the 49ers to a 44-19-1 record while starting Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick. And I don't know if Blaine Gabbert was in his last year. I think that might have been Colin Kaepernick with him. But, I mean, he got to a Super Bowl with Smith and Kaepernick as the quarterbacks, and just – he is really good about developing guys. He'll do great work with Justin Herbert, and that offense is going to be in great position. But more importantly, Harbaugh's always built quality staffs around himself. That's one thing that his brother has also done a good job of. That's why you see guys like Mike McDonald worked at both Michigan and for the Ravens, and now is getting head coaching looks, might get the Seattle job, might get the Washington job. So I think Harbaugh bringing in a bunch of proven guys there is going to help them as well. So, yeah, the Chargers couldn't have done better for themselves, and they're going to now have a chance to try to rival the Chiefs. They still have a lot of work to do on their roster, but that offense is at least looking threatening with Harbaugh there.
They have a lot of talent. They just haven't put it together. And, I feel like Harbaugh should be able to. I don't think they're that far away, honestly. They, like I said, great talent. They just can't. They can't stay healthy. They can't do anything. But like I feel like with Harbaugh, maybe they get a better coaching or training staff, and maybe they can stay healthier for a change. And I don't know. Like, they're not going to lose games because of bad coaching. Staying on topic real quick with this question, boss asking, what do you think about the Chargers, the 30-1, since you like them this year, but injuries happen and they have Harbaugh now? That's a good point. I liked them last year 30-1 because the metrics said that they were really good last year. And in 2022. And then I thought, hey, if they stay healthier this year, they have a chance. But they did not stay healthier. So, 30-1, the Chargers seems like a decent number. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think that's a solid number. I would like to see them kind of figure out the center position and add some talent to the defense, but I think you could do a lot worse with some of the 30-1 to 40-1 teams out there. So they're definitely going to draw consideration for me. The only downside is they're in the division with the Chiefs. So, if they're not quite ready to challenge them this year as they retool a bit, that might limit their upside if they get into a bad wild card situation. Say they have to go to Buffalo or something, that could always be difficult,
Yeah. Panthers hiring Dave Canales. I'm kind of surprised that they made a good move, or at least I think it's a good move. And the fact that they did it makes me think it's not a good move. But I like Dave Canales a lot. He's done great work with quarterbacks recently. He had Geno Smith reviving his career. And then he did the same thing with Baker Mayfield. He just got the most out of him. Baker Mayfield was discarded by the Panthers in 2022. And he had a couple of good games with the Rams, but he had some duds as well. But Mayfield played at a very high level under Canales. And now, like, the Panthers have Bryce Young, who looked just atrocious in his rookie year. And, like, the Panthers needed to hire a very sharp offensive-minded coach. And feel like Canales fit the bill perfectly. So I gave this an A, but I'm worried about Dave Tepper making a bad move, which he is wont to do. But I like this on the surface, and like I said, I'm worried about being dead wrong about this. But I gave it an A. What do you think?
Yeah, so on my Fever Dream show, when I was asked to give feverish rants because I had a fever, I went on a rant about Dave Canales and how he needs to be hired in this cycle, and whoever hires him is going to get a great coach. So I love this. I was like you. I was shocked that the Panthers actually went with him instead of going for one of the bigger name guys out there. Like, I don't know if they could have landed Belichick. Obviously, he's not getting a coaching job, but I'm shocked they didn't go for like Mike Vrabel or Ben Johnson. They pretty quickly settled on Canales, and I think that he is a rock solid coach in terms of his quarterback. His quarterback development is amazing. Like you said, Geno Smith played Pro Bowl level for him. Last year, Baker Mayfield had his best season as a pro, arguably. And, they played pretty well against the Lions, too, on offense for part of that game. So I think that if he had another year with that team, he could have maybe taken them to greater heights than we had anticipated possible. So maybe he can't do it with Bryce Young. We'll find out. But is there another coach that you'd want around Bryce Young to kind of develop him along this road among these young guys with upside? I think if you were asking me to name a few of the guys that I would want if I was the Panthers that were realistic targets, Canales would be probably among the top candidates. Bobby Slowick, because of what he did with CJ Stroud. Ben Johnson would have been up there too. So, I mean, to get one of them is just huge, and I think has immense upside for them. Now, David Tepper has to try to have patience, which is not his strong suit. But I love the Canales hire, and I hope I'm not wrong about that because I'm really high on his potential.
Yeah, Greg Olson too would be another one. He's older, but definitely an offensive coordinator that I think that the Panthers would have benefited from. But yeah, I like Canales. And Mike says, and maybe Tepper can stop throwing drinks at fans too. That would help. The boss saying you should do a video on the Super Bowl odds to see a lot of value. Yes, we will have a Super Bowl 59 odds show the week after the Super Bowl. Although, I mean, we'll see with scheduling. It'll be the week after or 2 weeks after, depending on, if either of us is on vacation or something. But we will have for sure a Super Bowl 59 odds show at some point later in February. All right. Next grade is the Falcons hiring Raheem Morris. So he was head coach of the Buccaneers before a while ago. It's been a while, and he did a good job initially with the Buccaneers, but they quit on him. Now there was a lot of stuff behind the scenes, a lot of the Josh Freeman stuff that went unreported. It's kind of crazy that the Josh Freeman story never came to light. Just goes to show how trustworthy Charlie is, because he had all the information about Josh Freeman, and we knew that his career was going to collapse because of stuff that was going on behind the scenes. So it wasn't entirely Raheem Morris's fault that Tampa fell apart. It was also like a lot of other players too there. But like, it just feels like the Falcons could have done better here. Like, and Raheem Morris is it felt like just very mediocre candidate. It's like he's already had a chance, and I know it was a long time ago, and like you could have made the same argument with Belichick because he wasn't Cleveland, and then he was fine there, but he wasn't great, and then he went to New England and got a second chance. So like maybe it's a repeat of that. Like I doubt it, but maybe. So like I don't hate this hire. I gave it a C. But just felt like the Falcons could have done better with an offensive coach. And I always say that, unless you're hiring this great defensive minded guy like Belichick or like Mike Vrabel's out there, like I think you have to go offense, because what happens is if you have a great defensive head coach, and he's going to hire an offensive minded guy, and if this offensive coordinator does a great job, he's going to be hired by someone else, and your quarterback's going to lose his coordinator, and then you're going to bring someone else in, and that guy does well, he's going to lose, he's going to go somewhere else too, and so you're going to keep cycling through offensive coordinators and just really going to hurt your quarterback. So I think that I'm more. I think you have to go offensive coach unless you're getting like a gem defensive guy, and I don't think Raheem Morris qualifies as that. But so I gave it a C. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's a fair grade. He seems like an ultimate culture builder type, because I know you said the team quit on him in Tampa Bay, but I think there was those extenuating circumstances of what was going on there. I think that environment was ripe for dysfunction. He was the youngest coach in the league at the time, so I think he definitely deserves another chance. But I don't like the landing spot here more than anything else. This almost feels like he was the Falcons' interim head coach after they let Dan Quinn go. And I think he went 4-7 in 11 games there, but the Falcons played really hard for him. And he kind of made a push towards the end where they were playing better. And I think that Arthur Blank and that front office there considered keeping him, but they ultimately went with Arthur Smith instead. I almost feel like this is like a makeup move, saying like, all right, well, we didn't do this last time. We've seen him do well with the Rams, and man, he is a great leader, and he blew us away in the interviews. And I think that he can do well, and I think he should probably do better if paired with a quality quarterback and just in a better working environment, which I think Atlanta will be in this circumstance. I know that they didn't play particularly well the last few years, but they do have pretty stable ownership and front office, from what I understand. But yeah, I just this feels like maybe a high floor but low ceiling move to me. I think Morris will command respect, but is this a needle mover that gets them to the Super Bowl? I'm not entirely convinced. Now, I do like that he brought Zach Robinson along with as his offensive coordinator. I think that was probably a selling point. Robinson's an up-and-coming head coaching candidate, so hopefully he'll be around for a few years. But like you said, the problem then becomes what happens when he leaves, and if that doesn't work out, or if the Falcons are good and then he leaves, what happens after that? So there are some questions to answer with this, but I am happy for Raheem Morris. I think he deserved a chance, but I was hoping it would not come with the Falcons because I wanted them to bring on someone like Bobby Slowick or Dave Canales or Ben Johnson. And they ended up going the opposite route.
Yeah, I definitely would have gone with some of those guys. And yeah, what you said, like Zach Robinson does a great job. He's going to be gone. And you have to find another guy. So this is not a head coaching hire, but thoughts on the Steelers hiring Arthur Smith as offensive coordinator? Did they draft another first round running back now? And to add to that question, do they bench that first round running back in favor of Godwin Ibikwe? Maybe they give him all the touches, and maybe Allen Robinson leads the team in receiving now. So this is enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I hate this move. The funny thing is, we came in the offseason, we're like, all right, Mike Tomlin's is going to look outside for help at offensive coordinator. That's great. They need an injection of new ideas. And then they happen to go out and get the guy who just last year had so much talent on offense that had absolutely no clue how to use it in Atlanta. And I get it. The quarterback situation wasn't good there. But it's not like Arthur Smith's going to have a great quarterback in Pittsburgh. He's going to have Mason Rudolph versus Kenny Pickett. And if they don't add anyone else, he's going to be asked to develop those guys. That has recipe for disaster written all over it. The only silver lining is you could say, well, he was a good offensive coordinator with the Titans and really knew how to use Derrick Henry and got the most out of that offense during that time. So maybe in a reduced role, he'll actually be able to think clearer. But I don't have faith in that. I will need to see it to believe it with him after the pain and suffering he put me through this year with Bijan's usage.
Yeah, if you're playing best ball, target Allen Robinson, Connor Hayward, Godwin Igibikwe. Get your shares of those guys. All right. The next hire is let's see. Is that it? Is that it for head coach? I think it's it for head coaches. Seahawks and Redskins don't have coaches. Other coordinators that were filled, Zach Robinson, we talked about him. Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. I think that's it for this. Do you want to touch on that real quickly? Because I love the Fangio hire, and I imagine you agree because Fangio has been a great defensive coordinator over the years. He did a great job with Miami last year. Took Miami to a top 10 defense, EPA wise, and the Eagles really struggled without Jonathan Gannon. So they had to upgrade Matt Patricia when Vic Fangio is a great upgrade. But then again, I look at Kellen Moore and I don't know why he necessarily got this job. I don't really hate it because he might have some insider info on Dallas, which could help in those matchups. But it felt like Dallas improved after Moore left, and the Chargers regressed with Moore there this past season. So I gave Fangio an A, and I gave Moore a C+. But thinking about it, maybe Moore should have been slightly worse grade. But like I said, he could have insider info on Dallas. But what do you think?
Yeah, I love the Fangio hire like you. I'm still bitter that the Broncos fired him when they did because I know that they had issues as a team then, but I remember thinking very, very much saying he hasn't had a good quarterback to work with. What was he supposed to do? And he's always gotten the most out of his defenses at every spot. So I really like that at this point. Kellen Moore, obviously, as John's pointing out, was a hot head coaching name, but I never really saw the huge appeal with him. I know that Dallas had some good offenses under him, but he was paired with Mike McCarthy, and so we didn't know how much of it was him. We kind of saw this year with the Chargers, Justin Herbert just didn't look as good or as comfortable. So I don't love this hire. It kind of feels similar to the guy they just let go where oh man, I'm blanking on his name. What was the Eagles offensive coordinator's name? I'm trying to say Jonathan Gannon, and I know that's wrong because it was their defensive coordinator. Brian
offense for Brian
Johnson.
Johnson. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God. How did that get lost in my head? Anyway, it feels a similar situation to Brian Johnson when coming into this year, people were giving Brian Johnson all sort of, oh, he might be head coaching material in this OC role. And hey, we're going to be interviewing. I think the Panthers still interviewed him for the job. He didn't get close to a finalist, but it feels like a very similar hire to me. So maybe Moore's upside will work out better under Sirianni, or maybe he works better within the system than he does. But it feels weird to move on from Brian Johnson as a highly touted guy after just 1 year as coordinator, and then bring in a guy that has kind of had a similar problem to him.
You know what? Like maybe the appeal with Kellen Moore was that he was just better than Jason Garrett, like with Dallas, because like everyone's used to Jason Garrett just screwing things up, and then Kellen Moore comes in and like they're more competent because like who wouldn't be after Jason Garrett? Um, so yeah, that was yeah maybe that was it. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that he was overrated most of the time. Mike asking, can you talk about Belichick and Vrabel? I mean, this is your wheelhouse. So why? Because you know the Patriot guys. Like why do you think Belichick hasn't gotten a job? You know, he interviewed with Atlanta, and they decided to go with Raheem Morris, and it felt like Belichick was going to get hired by someone, and he wasn't. And Vrabel as well. I think. I imagine with Belichick, it's because like he wants GM duties and teams don't want to give it to him, but that's my guess. As for Vrabel, I'm not quite sure. I like I said, I don't know why the Titans fired him to begin with, but I think Vrabel is super underrated. Maybe just the NFL just doesn't agree that he's a good coach, but I think they're wrong. So why do you think these guys haven't gotten jobs?
I think for Belichick, it's probably related to he has a particular thought process as to what he wants to be able to do with his team. He wants it to be kind of at a certain point. I think, like the Falcons, I think he looked at and said, all right, I could turn this team into a contender quickly. And probably the same with the Chargers in this coaching cycle, for example. But I don't know how many of the other spots he would have felt the same about. So he might be waiting for one of these bigger jobs to open up, like one where he's looking at, say, Dallas, and he's saying, oh, man, if Mike McCarthy does poorly this upcoming year and I take over that roster, I can make them a real Super Bowl contender. So I think he's kind of being a little patient, maybe being a little picky. And I also think maybe the NFL is overthinking things a little bit with him, saying, oh, he's lost his step for the last 5 years. And in reality, he hasn't lost a step on defense. He just needs to surround himself with better offensive minded guys and give control over the front office, which is something he might be reluctant to do. So we'll see what develops there. But I imagine Belichick will coach again. He might take a year off, kind of recharge, and then say, all right, I can survey the market. Now I know what I can do, and I have a plan in place for this upcoming year. Like he might spend the whole year off preparing to go back into coaching. Vrabel kind of baffles me that people aren't looking at him more, or teams aren't looking at him more. Washington not being as interested in him with Ben Johnson now bowing out of that conversation surprises me, just because I think Vrabel just brings a certain toughness, and he's coached up the defensive units. And it seems like teams that are looking for a culture builder might look toward Mike Vrabel, who kind of has gotten his teams to play like that gritty, hard-nosed defensive style. So I can't really speak to why he hasn't gotten an opportunity yet. But Belichick seems to be a combination of him wanting a certain circumstance and teams either being reluctant to give it to him or wanting to, go in a different direction, or not wanting to have him involved in the front office, which is fair.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And John's saying Eagles, Cowboys, Bills, and Jaguars, all potential openings next year. Yeah, they all could be. And they certainly look way more appealing than Redskins, Seahawks. You know, Redskins with that dreadful history, and the Seahawks with an aging Geno Smith. Not really appealing there. So yeah, I guess that's about it. We will be back next week to talk about our Super Bowl picks and prop picks. Can't wait to see what we have in store, and I can't wait to do some more research on this game to get a proper pick. And I want to look at the props as well, including the Super Bowl MVP odds, which we briefly discussed. And then, like I said, after that, the show after that will be the Super Bowl 59 odds, which I look forward to every year. So maybe you can find a gem which we've done, I feel like, recently. But anything to plug?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Jacob Camenker. I will offer my thoughts on the hiring cycle, the lead up to the Super Bowl. So keep an eye out for that and my work over at sportingnews.com. I don't think I have anything major planned over there for this week, but rest assured I'll have some good stuff for the Super Bowl. And if you got any NFL related questions, send them my way. If I see them, I will do my best to answer them. And one more game to go. Kind of crazy that we're at this point, but may not be the matchup I wanted, but looking forward to finding the edge in this one.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully it goes our way and we don't have any of those bad luck instances that we had in the other games. Thanks so much, Jesse, for watching, and everyone else for watching and commenting. I really appreciate you guys. And please hit like, subscribe, comment below, share this video, visit the link in the description for the merch store. All that would help us out a lot. We're going to be back tomorrow with Kenny. So there's no DFS this week because, like the picks, like we have to wait a week. But what we're going to do tomorrow, or I guess Wednesday night, is that Kenny is going to guess my top 10 players by position for the 2024 fantasy football rankings, which I will post on the site soon. I am done them, but because we're in WordPress now for the first time, I don't know. Uploading them might be tricky. There might be an error or two, so we have to make sure all that is going to work. But my rankings are done off website, so Kenny's going to guess the top 10 rankings. On Thursday, we're gonna have I think we're gonna have Quacky Takes. I haven't talked to him, but I'm sure we'll have something. And then we might as well go live on Saturday for Saturday notes, even though there's no game, but we'll do something. Silver says, I was enjoying some Russian music videos on YouTube today. Here's my Ask Walt question: is Russia becoming more like America, or is America becoming more like Russia? Why not both, right? I feel like if you ever want to listen to a fun video, it is called what is that video called? It's a history of Russia with the Tetris music. It's so funny. It's funny and it's great. It's called The Complete History of the Soviet Union Arranged to the Melody of Tetris. I highly recommend it. And maybe you've seen it already. It's had 13 million views. It was out 13 years ago. But it's funny at the end. They show how Russia has become like America. But yeah, there is some parallels to America being like Russia. So that's I think it's equal. You're saying what's it more like? I think it's equal. But give that video a listen. You won't regret it. It's a lot of fun. So. Anyway, thanks guys for watching, commenting. Really appreciate it. Like I said, we're back tomorrow, and I'll talk to you then.
All right. Sounds